Do you guys get the recording notification? Okay. Yeah, I should be recording these anyway. I just forgot about it, but it's okay. The part after this is going to be more of the information rich or like technical information anyway, so it works out. If you guys have questions any time during the Zoom meeting, just let me know. Or you can ask at the end, but if you interrupt me, it's fine. If you guys have questions, it's not only good for me, good for you, just in terms of like the actual teaching and learning dynamic, it's also good for you in terms of your grade. If you guys have the syllabus, which you should have, I think I gave it to you a while ago, but I also uploaded it twice this morning on Nalima. I uploaded it as like, I made like a section for syllabus in Nalima. I just like copied and pasted everything into that, so it's not in a document. And then I also uploaded the document as a PDF under resources. I'll talk a bit more about that, but basically 10% of your total grade is actually a little bit more than 10%, but roughly 10% is participation. So what that means is that you're expected to come to these meetings and you're expected to contribute in one way or another. That usually means through questions or just through some kind of engagement. Obviously, that shouldn't be like a forced and artificial dynamic. Hopefully we can kind of co-create the course to make these Zoom meetings useful for you because they should be. This is a weird lab. It's a weird class rather because it's online. One good thing about Gen Chem is that from my knowledge, this lab translates fairly well to being an online lab compared to more upper division labs. So it should work out for you guys, but I've never taught an online lab before, and I've also never taught 161 before. So there are two unknowns I'm going forward with. So we're kind of in it together in that way. So we'll figure it out. That being said, because I don't have experience with this and because a lot of this is new even outside of me, I want this to be, like, I want the course to be useful and the format to be complementary to what you guys are doing as students. So that's why we'll work through this. Okay, so that being said, I'll just go through the syllabus kind of part by part. I'm not going to literally like read it, but hopefully that'll gauge my memory about some important things. Okay, so unless there's some notice, which there shouldn't be, we're going to have a meeting every morning, every Thursday morning at 9 a.m. like this. I don't actually expect our meetings to go through the entire period. They certainly could, but with the format we have proposed, I don't think they're going to last 3 hours. They would otherwise in an in-person lab because you actually would be doing the labs then. But one of the differences for this lab is that there's a lot of flexibility and freedom with when you do the lab. And I'll get into that in a little bit. So I'm going to go off the syllabus as like a review, as like a source document. So I'll go over that in a little bit. Let's see what else. I'll post the Zoom stuff in an announcement so you guys have more easy access to it. Otherwise, if there's some other place on Nalima that's better, so you guys can reference it, let me know. I do have 2 office hour sections, and I also tutor in the Emporium for 2 hours a week. So you guys can feel free to join those, or you can just email me questions, which is probably going to work out better. So something, I don't know if I think some students from this section were emailing me about the manual. So there's some publishing problem. The lab basically got like last minute notification that we had to move online. So Dr. Fuller redrafted the manual completely because it was, for an in-person lab, basically like the week or before classes began, because that's how much notice we got, which was about a week or something. So why am I saying this? Because she had to rewrite it, so she sent it to the publisher. I don't know what happened, but there's some problem. So you guys are normally supposed to be able to download it from UH Bookstore. It looks like UH Bookstore is going more online in general, which is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. So you should be able to download it from there, but you can't yet. So in the meantime, I have the first 4 chapters of the lab manual, and I put them under the resources section in the Nalima page. So there's this week, which is the safety introduction week. It's kind of like in the manual, it's under lab 00. And then there's lab 01, which is density, lab 02, which I believe is molecular formulas, and lab 03, which is sublimation. So those are 4 chapters in the manual that you can go, 4 chapters in the manual that you can go for, that you can read. And any other reference, any other things you need for each week, I'll also provide you. Let's see, before I go into more details about each of the labs, if there's like an overview. Okay, so in part 2, the syllabus, it can be kind of confusing. So basically, for attendance, I do expect you guys to attend this lab session. That being said, okay, so under normal circumstances, you come to lab and then you do the lab. It's pretty simple. In these circumstances, you basically have an entire week to do the lab. So what that means is you could wait until the Zoom session and then do the lab during the Zoom session, and like just chime in if you have questions or something like that, and have like a live action kind of dynamic. Or you could do it before the lab, or you could do it after the lab meeting. It really depends. Kind of just depends on what's good for you. I sometimes find that freedom suffocating, so I would recommend picking something, well, whatever works for you. But in general, you're supposed to attend the Zoom meeting. I'm giving some hesitation around that because in reality, the meetings are there just to make sure you guys are doing everything properly and you have assistance for it. Because I mean, I'm supposed to be like, and you know, like your employee, like representative university to help you with everything. And so I need to do my job. So, so what I'm saying is the meetings are not exactly formality, but they are at the same time. It just depends on what you want them to be. It's annoying, but there's a lot of flexibility, so it's hard for me to say what is and what isn't. Bare minimum, you guys need to check in with me at least once a week on Zoom. So the easiest thing to do is to do the Zoom meetings, because then I can actually put you guys into the breakout rooms. You guys can talk about it. You can get, you know, much more feedback. This is by far the best thing to do. However, it's also possible that you could come during office hours, for example. But you need to come check in with me at least once a week through Zoom, and we can make sure that you're doing that you guys are doing everything right, basically. So I highly recommend doing Zoom. I would say it's required, but technically you don't have to, but I would very, very, very highly recommend it. It'll make everyone's life easier if we stick to it. I would love just to say it's completely required, no ifs and ands or buts, but because you can get around it, there is opportunity, but I just want to stress to not rely on not coming to these Zoom meetings, because it'll honestly probably make your life more difficult. But if something happens, the advantage of that is that, like, let's say something comes up, then you can meet with me in like an office hour or something. But yeah, that's my recommendation. For the lab reports and homework, so this first week is a little bit different in terms of like the names of the homework, but each week this is how things should come out. So on our session on Thursday, you come to class and there was an assignment there are 2 assignments you need to have done before you come to each lab meeting. One of them is the homework and one of them is a pre-lab. I consider those both pre-labs, but because they are, I mean, you literally have to do them before the session, but they're technically different. So the homework is basically something that you do. It's like a quiz and you're graded for it. The pre-lab is something that you do to prepare for the lab that week, so that when you do it, you're not overwhelmed with this big project. So you're not graded on it, but I mean, I also note these things. Theoretically, I should. It's going to be a lot harder to note this in this online class, so I don't know how, but if nothing else for you, I recommend you guys to do the pre-lab, the non-graded pre-lab, which is outlined, and I'll go over a little bit later. So for example, this week's a little different. It's hard for me to organize this because this week is different from all the other weeks. So I had to kind of give 2 lectures, and this week is not outlined in the syllabus. Shoot, do I go over that now? Yeah, let's go over this now. So for this week, I have been trying to upload a safety video that you need to watch, and then there's a quiz associated with that. That's this week's lab. It's really basic. The video is like 23 minutes long, and then the quiz is 14 questions. They can or cannot be intuitive. You shouldn't get a good grade if you don't watch a video, because there are questions you simply cannot really guess and do well on. They reference the video directly. So watch a video, but it's sometimes it's pretty straightforward, you know. The video is also a little bit more theoretical, ironically, despite being safety, which is super practical. But because of the nature of our online lab, a lot of the concepts that are introduced are with regards to working in a lab. And since you're doing this lab remotely, meaning you're doing this lab at home, and since you're not really working with chemicals, as in things which can be toxic within reason, you're basically working with like baking, cooking kind of stuff. I mean, it's not chemistry in the normal sense, but it still is chemistry. You know, the safety guidelines are a little bit more theoretical, but you should still know them. Okay, and in addition to that, I have posted into Lab 00, which is this week. There's an assignment there, and basically, if you follow, it's a preparation for. It's just like getting familiar with Excel, because next week when we do the lab, you'll be using Excel or a similar document. You don't have to use Excel necessarily. I don't actually use Excel. I use LibreOffice Calc, but I think as students, you guys are provided with Excel already, so you might as well use it. But if you don't want to use it, that's fine. A lot of students use Google Docs. Google Sheets. I have difficulties opening Google Sheets sometimes, and it's not as powerful as Excel, so I recommend using Excel. But if you really love Sheets, and if you can make it work, then that's great. But otherwise, being knowledgeable in Excel is good for you, so I also recommend that. Anyway, so yeah, if you guys go through the Lab 00, it's not classified as anything that you can translate to any other assignment throughout the semester. This is like its own thing. It's kind of like a homework for next week, though. Basically, you can think of this as like homework as in the formal definition of homework that you find in the syllabus. It's due at the well, I'll talk. Okay, so in terms of due dates, so let's write this out. You have one homework assignment due each week, and then you also have one lab report due each week. The homework assignment is to prepare you for the lab. So it's due, I actually put the due date, we can talk about it. I'd be curious to know you guys' opinion because it's not really settled. We can change this. We can either have it due at the beginning of class, meaning at 9 a.m., or we can have it due at noon, the end of class. What that translates to is basically, do you want to come really prepared and ready to start this week? Or do you want to come like a little bit more confused and get that clarified, submit your report or submit your homework afterwards, and then you have a little bit more responsibility on you to figure out the lab report stuff on your own. So it's just a matter of what you think is better to work out with less assistance. The homeworks are usually more straightforward than the lab report. So I would recommend having the homework done beforehand. What I might do as a compromise is have it due anyway at the end of the class, but I would still suggest turning it in before class and you kind of using this as like a last minute thing. But you really should do the homeworks before so that you're prepared for the class. Because I'm going to assume that you guys already know what you're doing and we can just go into that lab. Okay. And so each week, also under normal circumstances, you have a lab report. The lab report, the outline, how to do lab reports outlined in the syllabus, but we can talk about it too. To give you an example, you can't do anything this week, but next week you have a homework due for density. That's like the pre-lab. And then you do the lab, and then the lab report's due the next week. So you have 2 assignments due each week, but they're staggered. One's like a pre-lab and the other one's like a post-lab, if that makes sense. Any questions on that? I don't know if I explained that in a super clear way.
I have a question about something on the syllabus. It says that like typed work won't be accepted and it has to be handwritten.
Yeah.
If we're handing it in online, can we just type it, or does it still have to be handwritten? Then we have to take a picture or scan it.
Yeah, the idea, there is a lot of flexibility offered for the class, but that was not a flexible thing. I didn't write the syllabus, but the idea for that is to prevent plagiarism.
Oh, okay.
At least it's in your own
So,
handwriting
oh,
that
okay.
way.
So we still have to handwrite it then?
Yeah, the only flexibility I got for this is that if you write it using some electronic thing, like if you have a tablet or something and you have some application that lets you write something and submit it as an online document or electronic document already, that's fine. It just needs to be handwritten. Again, the idea really is basically just prevent plagiarism, copy and pasting. I understand that you of course can still copy and paste handwriting things if you just write it out. It makes it a little bit more annoying and difficult that way. Which is part of the design feature. The design feature is also that if you write it out, you'll be a little bit more concise. You don't often need to make things really long. You know, the shorter you can make it, the better, for your sake, for my sake, for everyone. That's a design feature, and that's something that was not flexible. So sorry about that,
Okay,
but
thank you.
so it will be annoying, but as long as it's legible for me and you upload it, then that's fine. There will be some things you'll need to add to an. So for example, this homework, you guys will need to use Excel and you need to generate a graph. Really, it would be cool if everyone has like the electronic software that you can write on, but I don't even have that. I've never even used one of those before, but that would be probably the most convenient for everyone. Otherwise, I suppose we would need to print it out and then write on that. But we'll talk about it. If you have some questions or if you want to rework things, talk to me about it. I've had a problem in the past, it's a TA of being too flexible with assignments. So I just want to say that that is what it is. You just need to write it. And unfortunately, it's harder for you guys, but at least if I have like a very hard guideline that you guys have to follow it. Otherwise, if there are too many formats, it just gets kind of chaotic and it's actually hard to grade everyone on the same scale because it's literally no longer objective. You know, there's just too much variation. And also on that note, historically, this lab is actually something read out anyway. You guys get like a manual, and then you write in the manual and you submit that. So it's not any different. The one difference is that it's online, so you have to submit the thing online as opposed to submitting it to me in person. Okay, any other questions? Cool. On the plagiarism thing, there is a degree of the honor system working here. I can obviously tell if you guys have the same exactly written things that's plagiarism, even if it's unintended plagiarism. So please, if you guys are working together, which is fine, you can do that. There's nothing wrong with working together. I in fact recommend it. But do not write the exact same thing because it's considered plagiarism and you will get a 0 for the assignment. In worst case scenario, if it continues on, then you can get reported for it and you can get on probation. In long-term perspective, cheating is a shortcut that doesn't get you anywhere. Especially once you get past undergraduate, you'll shortchange yourself by cheating because you're going to need to use that information. And if you don't have the information, you're going to be really stuck as an older person and you will make stupid mistakes. So it's not good to do it. But I can basically only see if, I'm just going to trust that it's not unless it seems very clear that it's plagiarized. And of course, if it's like a numerical answer, everyone's going to have the same result, right? That's fine. But I mean, for like when you explain something like a concept. There is late policy allowed, and as you can see, I think it's where is it? In 20% deduction per day. So also just try to submit it on time. So, all right, for the actual experiments, to my knowledge, and I've not done this before, we will have pre-recorded experiments done for you. So for example, I should be recording experiment 4, although they haven't gone back to me on it. But like the TAs are taking turns recording the experiment, and then you basically see what we're doing, then you take notes, and then you try to perform the same experiment yourself. So the pre-lab is like watching the experiment, taking notes, getting a lab report format ready, and then you perform the experiment, you take notes. In addition, like what, like your observations or whatever, this is aligned in the syllabus, and then you draft that up and then you send that to me. I do not have a sample lab report right now as a guideline to show you. As long as you follow the syllabus format, that's fine with me. I'll see if I can get an example report though, just to show you guys formatting. The last class I taught, which is analytical chemistry, the formatting was really important, and it really helped the students to have a guideline, to have something they could like base their document, the formatting off of. All right, let's see. So for this experiment, I already talked about it, I guess, but we have the safety video, and you just watch it, then you do the quiz, and that's it for this week. Yeah. I don't think I have the video for next week yet, actually, so I need to talk to the other TAs about that and in terms of where that is, but once I have it, I'll post it to you guys. You won't need it anyway until next Thursday, but I believe, anyway, I'll talk to everyone and get that and see where that video is. In terms of watching the videos, I'm trying to post them on La Lima, but they're pretty huge, so they're kind of a pain. In fact, they're so huge that it's hard to post them on YouTube. But I created a YouTube account for this, and it's easier for me just to post these on this YouTube channel than it is to post it on La Lima. So each of these recordings, I'll have 2 playlists, one for each of the sessions, my Tuesday and Thursday session, and then I'll put these videos in there. And ideally, if I can get it working, then I'll also post all the lab videos that we pre-record in that too. So that can be like your home base for all the video stuff. But otherwise, I'll post it on La Lima, or I'll figure something out. But either one of those 2 things. It's kind of mostly it. Do you guys have any questions?
I just wanted to let you know that in the chat, Michelle did their introduction.
Oh, cool. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, yeah. Cool. I'll remember this in the future then. So Michelle, if you are here, I don't see your name, but if you are here, then yeah, I'll remember in the future, and that's fine. We talked about this in the email, so I'll just work on that. I'll just make note of that. And cool, thanks Azalia. I'm glad you let me know about that. So,
do we have any final exams or like any exams throughout the semester?
To my knowledge, no. I don't think so. I think you just have the lab reports and the homeworks. So if you look at the tentative grading breakdown on the syllabus, basically the first 2 components, the safety quiz and spreadsheet, which makes it look like those are really important, that's just for this week. And I think Dr. Fuller wrote that way because they didn't really fit with the same formatting as everything else. And then participation is each week, and then the homework and reports for each week. But no, and Gen Chem 2 that I taught, we didn't have anything like that. We used to have quizzes at the beginning of each lab. In fact, I think every lab does that, but we're not doing that for this. So I guess you can kind of consider the homework as a quiz, which works out well for you actually, because it's way easier to do a homework assignment than to take a quiz for most people. So yeah, that's kind of the same thing. Like the quiz that you guys will submit. Yeah, I think the only quiz you guys have to do is actually the safety quiz for this week. Otherwise, the quiz thing is the homework that you submit for each week, but no tests. Some labs do that though in upper division. I don't know if UH does that. I'm sure it does, but in Arizona, U of A, my upper division labs, we had tests in them. Any other questions? Okay, so the 2 things I need to do to figure out or to finish I need to finish uploading the safety video so you guys can watch that. The safety quiz is already on Nalima, but let me know if you have a problem using it. If there's some problem, then I'll fix it as soon as I can. I have the density homework assignment. I think it's unpublished, but I have it on there too. Yeah. And for submitting reports, no one submitted anything yet. I made a Dropbox. I haven't tested it out, and I've never used Dropbox on Nalima before. So probably submit your lab reports there. The homework is something that you can do in it's like assessment, quiz, and assignments or something tab like that. So it's actually an electronic thing that you can just type in and respond to, which is convenient. The lab report's something that you write out, and yeah, probably the Dropbox makes sense, but I'll clarify that with you and I can get back to you on that. I think that's everything.
I had a question. For the lab report, since it's going to be written, do you want it on like separate sheets of paper or preferably in a notebook?
I don't think it matters. It doesn't matter for this class. So the last class I taught, the format really mattered, and we used a notebook, and it was actually kind of nice. At first, it was annoying to have such a rigorous format, but at the same time, it was convenient because the students got used to it. It actually made grading it really easy because I knew exactly where to look and everything. For my sake, and then it also presents in a really clear format. What they did was they had a notebook with two halves. So this half, which is the left-hand half, I'm assuming you guys are like looking at it. Well, okay, if I'm looking at my own screen, yeah, this half is the one that you'd write on, and then this half you take notes. That was really nice for me too, because you write basically like, this is what you want to be graded, like your procedure, the concepts, the theory. And then here was like notes, like I observed this thing, this happened, spilled this, things like that. And it also helps me too to see like where errors happened in the lab and to see if, okay, you made this mistake, but your mistake was a result of this. This may or may not be your fault. And it helps me adjust the grading too. My students also wrote their calculations on the left side of the page, usually. And so the left side was basically all math for the most part, a few observations and mostly math. I thought that was really nice. You don't have to do that for this report. According to the syllabus, you can also just write it like on paper and just like have like objective step, procedure or whatever. Either one. I personally found that notebook to be really, really convenient. I can send you guys an example of that format. That was really nice. And if I were to write this again, I would do that. But formally, there's no required distinction between those two. Okay, well, if there are no questions, then that's everything for today. I'll once I stop recording, which should be now.